It may be one of the hottest stinking days of the year today, but just imagine what it's going to feel like in a few months. And where would you like to be during one of the coldest days of winter?
Educate, inform, inspire. The Dan Parsons Show, a podcast that lifts up instead of tearing down.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the Dan Parsons Show. I'm your host, Dan Parsons. Hey, coming up on today's show, some breaking news out of the Lincoln Airport today. Joining us in just a moment, Rachel Barth, Director of Air Service Development and Strategic Marketing for the Lincoln Airport. But before I introduce Rachel, a reminder that we're building a vibrant community across the state of Nebraska, and I'd like to invite you to be part of our team on Patreon. As you may have noticed, we've been cranking out the content with new episodes nearly every day. So I invite you to become a friend of Dan on Patreon to help fund the #1 political podcast in Nebraska. We can't do this without your help. I'd really appreciate it. Okay, here's my interview with Rachel Barth with some pretty exciting breaking news from the Lincoln Airport. Enjoy. Well, hey, some exciting breaking news coming out of the capital city of Lincoln, Nebraska today. And to share the news, please join me in welcoming for her very first appearance on the Dan Parsons Show, Rachel Barth, Director of Air Service Development and Strategic Marketing for the Lincoln Airport. Rachel, welcome aboard.
Hi, Dan. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And our astute, longtime audience will remember that you were on the radio show a couple times, and way back in the day, you were on Pints and Politics.
That was like 5 years ago now.
Yeah, the OG of the Dan Parsons podcasting career. So I'm sorry I don't have a cold beverage to offer you, Rachel.
I know. Where's my beer at, Dan?
Well, let me just set this up. It may be one of the hottest stinking days of the year today, but just imagine, our audience, just imagine what it's going to feel like in a few months. And where would you like to be during one of the coldest days of winter? Rachel? Tell us.
Yes, Orlando. So we are just so excited to announce that our new partner at the airport is Breeze Airways, and they are going to start flying nonstop service for us out of Lincoln to Orlando in December. So just big news. It's a super popular destination, I know, with families and couples, people who like to do cruises fly into Orlando. So I'm just really excited to bring this service to Lincoln.
Yeah. And I think, and we'll get into some of the details, but of this journey that you and your colleagues have been on these past few years. But maybe start with, tell us a little bit about Breeze, because that's, for those of us who don't travel a lot, may not be familiar with that airline, and then get into some of the details of this package.
Yeah, so Breeze is a low-cost carrier, so similar to Allegiant Airlines, maybe, a Spirit, JetBlue, or other airlines people might be familiar with that kind of do that low-cost model. Breeze is an airline that was created a few years ago. A lot of the people that actually were at Allegiant left Allegiant and when started Breeze Airlines. They are the fastest growing airline in the United States right now. We have been talking to them for about a year. They were really interested in Lincoln. Really, they kind of focus on secondary markets. And so, the size population of Lincoln, we're an underserved market, really just aligns a lot with kind of where they like to focus and put their aircraft. And they fly a really nice aircraft, an A220. It's 137 seats, really nice first class options. But they have family seating, which is great for us that fly with our kids like I do. They have Wi-Fi, which is great for those of us that like to binge a show. And so I think it's going to be a really great product. And really the hope is once we get Orlando service, and as long as that's successful, air service breeds air service. And so really they are looking at Lincoln on expanding with us. And so that's why when we worked on the negotiations with them, I was excited to see them offer us a 4-year contract.
Oh, okay.
So, no airline can come in with zero risk, but the fact that they wanted to do a 4-year contract with the Lincoln Airport really shows their commitment to our community and that they see this as a long-term partnership, which, if you were around, I think that's music to all of our ears, is knowing that they want to come in and be just as part of our community as we want them to be part of it. So having that kind of relationship and partnership from the beginning, I think, is vital.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's start with our critics, because we know people still are dubious, maybe because of the Redway experience from a couple years ago, and rightly so. Swing and a miss on the Redway. So maybe, I don't know, do this any way you like, but lessons learned from the Redway experience. And I attended the news conference earlier today and heard you talk about, you and some of the other, your colleagues talk about that, because you did learn a lot from that experience. And so maybe talk about a little bit about that and why this has the potential to be different.
Yeah. So one, I think is an easy glaring thing was Redway really was a virtual airline. And it was kind of a first of its kind a little bit. It was coming out of the pandemic, did have some similarities with trying to get people nonstop from a small airport to a larger hub airport. But as you know, a lot of that was too big, too fast, too soon. So starting out of the gate with, I think 7 markets is what they had proposed and had done. A lot of that had to do with certain flight hours, and it gets really technical, but some of the agreements that were in place with the airline and then the aircraft that they had to use, they had to have like 220 flight hours. And so they really did try to create a schedule to meet that, which is why they ended up with so many different destinations. And that was really tough to start out with. You go from just having United with Chicago and Denver to all of a sudden 7 flights. And now the destinations themselves all could be sustainable out of Lincoln. I think it was just not probably doing it the way that it was rolled out. They also didn't have a ton of aircraft availability. And so they were really using 1 or 2 maybe aircraft to do all these different flights. So, if you have a mechanical issue, you have some weather delays, that really then backs everything up. And so too big, too fast is what I like to tell people. You do really need time to sell tickets. And the benefit, though, was we did get some great data, which Dan, you heard us talk about today.
I'm here to tell you that in spite of all of the challenges that the community experienced during that period here, we would not be standing here today if it wasn't for the lessons that we had learned from Redway and the data that we collected during that process here. We certainly would not be here welcoming Breeze as the newest destination for their airline.
There's nobody that took the Redway news harder than me. Trust me. And
I know that.
So,
I know that.
I probably cried or something to you, I'm sure. And it would have been really easy to give up and just say, I'm out. I would lie to say that it didn't cross my mind at several different points, especially when you have, government officials and people in the community coming after you for decisions. And that's tough. And it is. And it would have been easy for us to give up and just say, Lincoln, it is what it is. But I think we really took what happened and, like you said, what were lessons learned. And one was having somebody at the airport focused on air service. And so one of the moves was to put me in that position to really focus on air service development and learn the industry. So we weren't just relying on, a third-party consultant to do that data for us. And so having somebody laser focused in the airport and from the community was one of the big moves that was made. Secondly, was hiring, a consultant, somebody else that could come in and really look at Lincoln, look at our data and say, yeah, you are underserved. Hey, I know that everybody in Lincoln wants XYZ, but this is really what makes sense. You can't just go and say, okay, we're going to go get Southwest Airlines or we're going to get this because so-and-so wants it. I mean, there's a strategy and there's data, and you have to really prove to the airlines that your community can sustain what you're asking for. And so that was a big part of it. It was looking at that data and hiring somebody that just kind of understood who Lincoln was and spent time with us. And we found that with CMT. They've been a great partner with us over the last year, and they have all either worked for an airline or worked for other airports. And so it's been really nice to have them focus on Lincoln and helping us kind of come to the table and talk with these airlines about why Lincoln, why does that make sense? And then the other part was creating an air service advisory council. And that was huge.
People from the community.
That was from these are community folks that we asked to be part of this group. And I mean, there's probably 20 of them, and I talk to them all the time. And they are the kind of the checkpoint, right? Like, hey, we have this idea. What do you think? You represent business, or you represent a travel agency, or you represent the University of Nebraska. I mean, they all have different kind of reasons that we ask them to be part of this council. And so we bring opportunities to them, and they're the ones that are kind of like our gut check for the community. Like, hey, like, I think that this is a great idea, but what about you? And that was something that was really missing with Redway, was we didn't really have that community buy-in and that community kind of gut check that we now know we need. And that group has become incredibly vital for us, because they've asked some of the hard questions, or maybe questions we didn't think of, and really getting their buy-in made us feel better that we were making the right decision. Because really, it's not just the decision for the airport. Like, we're making decisions for the community, because air service is economic development. And so if we want to continue to be a thriving airport, we need to have air service. And that might mean coming up with incentive dollars, waiving of fees, marketing, talking about the service. And it would be really hard to do that if we didn't have community support behind what we were trying to do. There's no reason the airport and the community should be at odds with each other. So why not work together to figure out what Lincoln needs? And part of that is on me to educate the community. Like, hey, this is why this airline isn't going to work for us, or this is why this market isn't going to work. But here is what the data is telling us, and this is what we're going to go after. So, we may not always agree, but people can't argue numbers.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you were strategic. And by the way, let me just pause for a moment and just say, one of the themes from the news conference this morning was many people, I'm sure it was embarrassing for you, but
a little bit.
pouring out praise for Rachel Barth and the work that you've done.
Rachel Barth. Can we just give Rachel another shout out for putting on this celebration and all her work? Thank you, Rachel.
Because it is a new position that was created for you to lead that. And obviously you've taken that by the horn and done that. So anyway, it was refreshing after going through all the crap with Redway. And I did see it up close because I worked with you guys on that project. Yeah. But I mean, I understand it was a group effort. And maybe talk a little bit about the board and Dave Herring, your boss, and the work that all of you did together to bring this moment today.
Yeah. So, I think that's one of the big things after Redway was, what are the lessons learned and how do we ensure that this doesn't happen again? And also just understanding that, that was also coming out of COVID. Those funding, mechanisms are no longer there because those were special funds for COVID. And so what opportunities do we have to attract new air service? And like you said, it would have been easy to just kind of wash our hands of it and be like, we give up. And, we have United and we're happy with United. They're a great partner, but we have what we have and that's it. Because the truth is a lot of airports do only have one carrier, and a lot of airports lost service altogether over the pandemic. But I think with the group we have, including the Airport Authority Board, Dave, myself, and the other team, we don't give up.
We've been through some tough moments in the past, and we've learned from those endeavors and refused to let disappointment define us. We've listened, we've adapted, and we've made the right decisions to continue to move LNK forward. I will tell you, having done this a long time, air service development is not for the faint of heart. You'll find yourself hearing from lots of people telling you what you need, and just as many people telling you what you can't have. It takes a tremendous strength of character to be able to fight for a community day after day while taking rejection as fuel to work even harder. That need for character is why Rachel Barth was the ideal choice to lead LNK's air service efforts. Her love of Lincoln, her passion for LNK, and devotion to our community personify what makes Lincoln so special. Refocusing her boundless energy and drive towards air service gave us someone laser focused on building relationships, analyzing opportunities, and championing Lincoln's value to the airlines.
We know that air service is something that's really important to our community. And so trying to put those pieces together and kind of put the right team together is really what brought us to Breeze today. They flew in and met with us a couple months ago. And I think the theme of that kind of secret meeting with them was how just incredibly impressed they were with our community. I joke that I rolled out the red carpet for them, but we definitely did. I mean, we went and visited Husker Athletics, and we took them to the stadium, and we took them to downtown Lincoln, and we showed them the airport, and we showed them what makes Lincoln so special, because it's really hard in those airline meetings that I go to. It's like speed dating. I mean, you sit across from the airlines and you get 20 minutes to pitch Lincoln, and that's it.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
I mean, I have these sheets of data that say, hey, this is why I think you'd be great. But until you come into our community and you meet the people and you see what makes Lincoln so special, that's really hard to do unless you get them here. And so to get Breeze to send a VP to Lincoln to meet with us and meet with the chamber and meet with the university and meet with the people that make this community special, they were sold. I mean, I think we made him feel incredibly special. And if you listen to Trent, their CFO today, they're excited about Nebraska. And I'm excited that we're their only airport here. I'm excited to have a 4-year contract with them and hopefully grow from Orlando to additional destinations. But I think the theme today was, let's celebrate this one. Let's make sure Orlando is successful starting in December. Let's get the seats filled. Let's make sure it's profitable. Everybody is good. And then we can add additional destinations as they see fit and as we see fit. And we're not rushing into this. We're not going to add a bunch of destinations and then some fall. Like, we want this to be sustainable. And I think we're going about it the right way and methodically this time.
Talk a little bit about the strategy and the financial aspect of this. I know back in April, the board set air service as its first strategic goal, and adding a leisure carrier by 2026 and an additional mainline carrier by 2027. And so, and then you made a long-term investment in the market. Can you talk a little bit about and I know this is jargon within your industry, but it's new to most of us in the audience, the minimum revenue guarantee program. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that works?
Sure. So minimum revenue guarantees are essentially a way to incentivize and also subsidize an airline. And so there's a few different ways you can do that. Through the federal government, there's programs like Essential Air Service, which Lincoln is not eligible for. EAS is typically for smaller airports than Lincoln. Also, they have to be, I think, around 90 miles away from like the next largest airport. So think about, your Scotts Bluffs, your Kearneys, your Grand Islands. Those are EAS airports. So they are federally subsidized. They receive millions and millions of dollars for air service. Lincoln does not. So that is one big differential thing. Secondly, another way to get air service as far as a subsidy from the federal government is through a grant process called a SCASD grant. And that is a small community grant that we will apply for. You can apply for those on a yearly basis, super competitive. And typically, if you are awarded one of those grants, you have to come up with a community match. So when we were able to get Houston service on United, and I think back in the day, Atlanta service with Delta, those were all through community grant. But you have to have some sort of matching fund. And those matching funds have to come from the community. They cannot come from the airport. So that's an important kind of distinction. And then you have this minimum revenue guarantee that we are utilizing. And again, those can come in different forms. But again, the big thing is the FAA does not allow an airport to use their operational dollars to subsidize an airline. So the only thing I can really do from the airport standpoint is I can help with marketing. I can waive landing fees for like 2 years. I can kind of give them like some terminal rent incentives. So kind of like, what I'm sure LPED does with new businesses coming into Lincoln, right? We can give some things here and there. That's about the extent of what the airport can actually do. However, a lot of communities have gotten creative and they've had community members, they've had groups outside of the airport, they've used taxation dollars, they've used state aid, community aid to come together and create pools of money to help incentivize airlines to come into their community. And before the taxation a few years ago, we really did not have anything set up like that, like many other communities did. And so we're using some of that property tax dollars that we've now set aside for air service development. And so really with those meetings I've been having with airlines, it has completely changed the game for us. A year ago when I met with airlines in Washington, D.C., it really did not go great. I would be honest, like I left there feeling incredibly defeated last May, thinking, great, we are in for a long haul. And I have a board of directors that just put 2 strategic goals out there to get new air service. And we had zero communication happening. But I think through the efforts with Kenneth from CMT, through my efforts, through the board's efforts of really prioritizing air service and putting some dollars aside for minimum revenue guarantees, a lot of those conversations have changed. And then I started noticing at conferences, talking to these airlines, they started seeing a little bit more interested in Lincoln. They started figuring out, how do we make this work? What does this look like? And I mean, it's been a process, trust me, of sitting down and negotiating and talking and making sure that we're protecting ourselves. But then also it's going to be profitable for them. And what does this look like? And Breeze definitely had risen to the top as one of those low-cost carriers that we thought would be a great partner for Lincoln. We haven't had a low-cost carrier for a very long time, minus Redway. Allegiant, I think, was here maybe 20 years ago. I don't remember.
And it wasn't long.
It was a long time ago. But we haven't had a low-cost carrier. And so we've really been missing out on, families flying out of our airport, young professionals flying out of our airport. And so I think this is going to be a really good start to what we need to fill that hole. And then I think, as part of our strategic plan, getting another, what we call a big airline into Lincoln really would kind of make our air service package whole.
And so those of us who are curious, tease out where some of those destinations could be, or what's on the wish list of those destinations.
Yeah. No, you're right. So when we did the feasibility and catchment study with CMT, you can't argue with data. It clearly lines out what are some of the top markets your community is flying to, whether it's them connecting through a hub or them driving up to Omaha and flying nonstop to somewhere. And so you start looking at these top destinations, and luckily Chicago and Denver are already on there. But you start looking at Phoenix is a top market, Vegas, Orlando, no shock, Dallas, Minneapolis. So a lot of those destinations that either one, we've had at one point, or two, we think we could have gotten there maybe with Redway, just didn't quite happen, are all top markets that people in our community are flying to. And so that's the data we gave to Redway. And I don't know if I answered your question before completely with the MRG, but what we're doing with those taxation dollars is we have listed out, here's all the priorities that the airport's looking at, right? Some of that is infrastructure, some of that is stuff for the industrial park. But the board has set some of that money aside for air service development, knowing that it is a pay-to-play system. And anybody that says it's not, has not sat in the meetings that I've sat in. I kind of tell people it's like NIL, right? Like we're all big Husker fans, and you sometimes have to pay to get the best athletes. And that's kind of what it's like right now, is for us to be competitive, we have to come to some money, have money come to the table. And so to be able to go to these airlines meetings, knowing I have some incentives and some backing, has completely changed the game for us. I mean, we went from not really having hardly any conversations with airlines to now having multiple conversations, and not just with Breeze, but with other airlines interested in our community, because we can help share some of that risk. And that's the thing, is Breeze told me it's $3 to $4 million for them to start in a new community. And so it's not unheard of, and really not that unfair to ask the community to also have some stake in the game, right? I mean, they're bringing multi-million-dollar toys to our playground. So why would we not help offset some of that cost and share some of that risk? And so that's just kind of the nature of the game. And I'm excited that our board saw that. They heard me. They heard me come back and say, hey, you want air service? This is what I need. And not everybody agrees with it, but those people that don't agree with it, probably need to do some research.
Well, that's just it. Yeah. And hopefully, that's hopefully what we're trying to accomplish today. before we wrap up, let's sell some tickets to Orlando.
Let's
Talk
go to
about
Orlando. Let's go to Disney.
yeah, talk about this package, the affordable package, and maybe some of the what does it look like to fly on this new airline to Orlando?
Yeah, so Breeze Airways, their aircraft is an A220, and so it's about 137 seats. I think I mentioned this. They have Wi-Fi and they have family seating, which is really great if you have kids.
Describe family seating for those who aren't familiar with it.
Yeah, so the family seating is like when you're booking your seats and things like that. Like you basically can ensure that you're going to be sitting next to your kids, and I don't think you have to pay like extra for that. Where sometimes you might have to pay extra to sit in a certain way. It kind of ensures that you're kind of with your kids, which is really important. I have a 6 and 9-year-old. I've flown with them many a times. It's hard if you get divided up. And so this is a way to ensure families are together. They have Wi-Fi, again, huge perk, especially if you're flying to Orlando. Could be a decently long trip. So it's nice to have those iPads charged up with some videos and stuff ready for your kids. But their starting price is $79 one way. And so, as you know, a lot of low cost carriers, that kind of just depends on if you're going to want to sit first class, which you can. Those prices will go up, but their goal is to make it affordable. And I think that's one of the things that's really nice about Breeze is they are an affordable airline. So the goal is to have more families and more, college students and young professionals fly out of our airport. And so we're excited to see that. And the more and more people that fly, again, only increases our chances of adding a second destination. And air service breeds air service. And that's something that I've been talking about today is the more air service you get and the more people that come into your airport and the demand goes up, you start catching the attention of other airlines. And that would be the best option, right? Is to have a second or third airline come into Lincoln. And that would be our goal. So I think Breeze is a great start to our plan of getting to where we need to be.
Tickets are on sale today. And when's the first flight? In December? Is that right?
Yep. December 10th is the first flight. And it's going to be on Wednesdays and Saturdays. So very much like an Allegiant model, if people are used to that, fly twice a week. And tickets are on sale. So you can go to our website. We have that on the front page. You can go to Breeze's website and book tickets. It's really simple to book. I think one thing people have asked me is, I've never heard of this Breeze Airlines, and they have mostly been on the coast. They're obviously starting to come into the Midwest, but we're their 35th state that they serve. So they're very well connected to airports. They're the fastest growing airline, and they fly for Husker Athletics, and that was huge.
Oh, they do. Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, we're the official airport of the Huskers. We have a great relationship with Husker Athletics, and when Breeze came to town, they were one of our first partners we took Breeze to chat with, and they fly charter for our volleyball team and our basketball team. So the University of Nebraska is very familiar with them and put a lot of trust in them to obviously fly athletes and get them to where they need to be. And so that made us feel better too, knowing that one of our big relationships and partners had already partnered with them. And so it all worked out really well, to be honest.
Well, that's really cool, Rachel. Yeah. I couldn't be more thrilled, again, seeing the trials and tribulations, the last swing and a miss the last couple of years. And you know this because we're friends, but I exclusively fly out of, I'm not much of a business traveler, but I'm certainly a leisure traveler. And it is just so stinking easy to fly. I think I posted last time I flew out down to Austin to see my family over the 4th of July. I was literally left my place in the Haymarket in Lincoln, checked my bag, through security, setting at the gate, literally less than 30 minutes after I left my house. Where in the hell else in America can you do that?
I don't know. I fly a lot. I have been gone at least once a month, and I've been stuck in a lot of airports. And so I can attest it is so nice to fly out of your own airport and just be home within 20 minutes, especially flying with the kids. Waiting for your luggage and then having to drive an hour and get through security. And it's just so nice to just land and then be home. So I do definitely appreciate that convenience as well.
Yeah. Well, and the improvements. And again, the taxpayer supported improvements to this airport. I tell people all the time, if you've not flown out of Lincoln in the last few years, you won't know that you're in Lincoln if you get off the plane.
Yeah.
It's just gorgeous. It's just so comfortable. It's just so convenient. And yeah, so congratulations. Congratulations to you and your colleagues. And I can't wait. I've never been to Orlando, and I've got some grandkids that I know would like to head down there. So anyway, congratulations, Rachel.
Thank you, Dan. Yes,
And
today was only happy tears, so that's good, huh?
That's right. That's right. Anything else that I've missed?
No, I think you did a great job. As always, if anybody has questions, please reach out to the airport. I promise somebody will answer. And if you show up, I promise you'll talk to somebody. We're real humans, and our customer service team is top notch. And, I know that's one of the perks of flying local is you actually get people to help you. And so I think if we continue on this trend of getting people to support local, we're going to see additional air service, and it's going to be a really great thing for our community.
Hey, thanks, Rachel. And congratulations on the new airline. I can't wait for winter break in Orlando. And hey, I want to announce that we're launching a campaign to thank our Patreon members, also known as Friends of Dan. Look for exclusive content that only you will get. And if you're not yet a member, hop on over to Patreon to sign up. I'd really appreciate it. You'll be helping us support the #1 political podcast in Nebraska. Thanks to the Parsons team who made this show possible. That's today's show. Thanks for tuning in. Now go do good things. I'm Dan Parsons.